Hello and welcome to this repair tutorial, and today we're going to look at a Cambridge, and this is an Azur 640C, and this is the version 1 CD player. In terms of general specifications, it supports CD, CDR and CDRW, HD CD decoder with automatic detection, Wolfson WM8740 24-bit stroke 192 kHz digital to analog converter. Frequency response is 10 Hz to 20 kHz plus or minus 1 dB. Total harmonic distortion is 0.002%. The CD player also supports both coaxial and digital output via optical, and the coaxial output impedance is 75 ohms. And then in terms of dimensions, height, width and depth is 70 by 430 by 310, and the weight is 4.6 kilograms. So if we sort of take a look from the top, and I'd sort of just outline what the issue is with this CD player. What the owner reported was that the CD player would randomly skip, and then you would also have maybe issues with regard to how the CD player was playing. So I believe, like when I ran this thing on test, what I would actually see sometimes is that it would try and load, and then it would effectively just say no play as an error message. Part of the repair, of course, was to fix the issue relating to the play, but also, as you'll see in a moment, the CD player required to be completely recapped, but there was some additional work which always has to be done, and it relates to this historical issue with this brown glue, which is always used on CD players, amplifiers and many other audio pieces of equipment from this time era. And then here, this is a major concern. So what you have is the power input board, but what they've done is they put this brown glue around the live neutral connections, and this is a multi-tap transformer. So this is the primer of it. So it would normally be for 230 volts, 120 volts, and then neutral. But what has happened is this glue has become hardened, and we know that this glue also becomes corrosive and it also becomes conductive. And you might say, well, what's kind of like the concern here? Well, if you look at this photograph, what you can see is I've removed the wires, desoldered them, and then you can see these vias which connect from the top of the board then to the circuit tracks underneath. Now, if you have, say, a modern day wiring system in your home, I have no doubt that there would be conduction between the different connections here, between your live and neutral, and you may also see inadvertent tripping in your home. The other concern is that if you have electrical conduction, of course, it's effectively having current flow where there should be no current flow. So to me, this is a safety issue. So what I need to do is to remove all of that hard, dry glue. So always use eye protection when you do that. And for me, this was using a plastic scraping tool. And then I also used some solvent to try and break down the glue. It was almost dry like a hard lacquer. In some cases, you get some elasticity, but not in this case. So it was quite an extensive job to clean all of that away. And then here what you can see, this is the digital to analog converter. And the bit that I'm sort of bringing to your attention here, you have the individual power supplies, but you also have multiple electrolytic capacitors. And what I found was that when I put them on the ESR meter, they were already showing high equivalent series resistance, but also many of the capacitors had fallen in value. So the whole CD player was recapped using Nichicon high quality Japanese capacitors. Now if we just focus in on the board, you can see that what I've started to do here is to remove some of the electrolytic capacitors. So here, C24, you can see. Just to the right, and where I put the circles, this is this brown glue yet again. And you can see that it's covering some of the resistors, and it's also covering multiple rectification diodes as well. Any component which has been contaminated by this glue needs to be replaced. It's not a case where you can just scrape it off and everything will be fine. It will not. And as I said, just make sure that you wear eye protection when you do this. So it's quite a lengthy task, but just to avoid the damage from the circuit board, just use a plastic scraping tool. And if you need to soften it, as I said a moment ago, you may want to use some form of solvent to do that. And then here what I've done is I've just zoomed down. You can see top left corner, some of those electrolytic capacitors. But you can also see as well that there is areas towards the rear of the DAC board. So here on the right hand side, which is the yellow connector, that is where you have your coaxial input. And then on the left hand side, this is where you have the Toslink And you can see that this brown glue has seeped underneath a number of smaller high-frequency filter capacitors, and it's also gone under the Toslink. And then when we zoom in here, you can see what has happened. So what I've done is I've desoldered the optical Toslink. One of the pins has completely been eroded away by this brown glue. And you can see here on this photograph the extent of it. During manufacture, it's seeped underneath, and then as it's dried out over a period of time, it's literally rotted through. And the owner had reported that it worked fine on the analog side, but really was receiving nothing then on the optical side, and this is the reason why. So that brown glue needed to be removed. The smaller high frequency capacitors were replaced. I also had to replace Toslink interface as well. And then here, if we focus on the servo control, you can see again it has its own individual power supply, and you have the same brand of electrolytic capacitors throughout. So those electrolytics, of course, needed to be removed, but we have a similar problem that we saw on the DAC board, but this is a little bit more severe. So here we're taking a top shot. If you look on the left-hand side, you have multiple cables coming in, and then on the right-hand side, power feed, and then the connection off to the HMI at the front. Now, the metal copper canister over the top is used for electromagnetic interference, but you do need to desolder that cover. And then when you do, you discover what I can see here. So what I've done is I've just highlighted all the different areas, and it's this brown corrosive glue. So it has to be removed. And as I said previously, you've got to replace any components which have been contaminated by you. I always feel for the owners of any piece of electronic equipment, amplifiers, CD players, whatever it may well be, because to me this is completely unnecessary. These failures do not need to occur, and I appreciate the manufacturers realise the issue associated with this glue, and then they change the type of support glue that they were using. But it doesn't take away the fact that there has been a lot of damage caused to really a perfectly good piece of audio equipment by using this glue. And what you find is that you may work on 3 or 4 different units, and the level of glue will change depending on who was on the manufacturing line and how much they applied, or in some case didn't apply. And then with the circuit board on the bench and everything disconnected, you can see here on the left hand side you have the voltage regulators for the power supply mounted on the black vertical heat sinks, the input protection fuse. And then if we zoom in again, you can see the extent. So it's touching some of the high frequency filter capacitors, and it's coating the outer side then of this electrolytic. So all capacitors were replaced. And then here, when we kind of look from the top, you can see that what I've done is I've removed other components. And this high frequency filter capacitor, you can see it's coating both of the component leads there. So effectively it's conducting when it shouldn't be. And then the other area which we need to focus on is the front HMI. So what you can see is the main display. And what I always advise is that you need to just maybe use some window cleaner and just remove all the dust from the front, and then make sure that that is nice and clean. And then what I've done is I'll put a circle around the operator switches. Now the reason why I've done that is this CD player supports a remote control, but if I operate any of those switches during test, you kind of found that they were very, very intermittent in operation. And I've sort of used this expression before in tutorials relating to Cambridge amplifiers. You almost need to roll the push button for it to make a positive contact. So it's very, very poor, and they are worn. So what you need to do is to replace them. And then here on the circuit schematic, you can see what is happening. The microcontroller is reading directly the status of each one of these push buttons. You can also see on this schematic as well the IR infrared device. And it's not uncommon that an owner could, for example, say that the CD player appears to work perfectly from the remote control, but if they're using any of the operation from the front panel with the switches, it seems to be sluggish or it's not working very well. And typically, remember, some of the switches, if it's being used manually, will be more worn than others. So, for example, the open and close switch, which is used for the tray, then that's going to get extensive use, and the same also then with the play button as well. Whereas maybe some of the other switches, like skip, for example, will probably be less worn, but you still get oxidisation over time. And then here, when we look from the top, this is after the CD player has been recapped, and you can see that that board now is nice and clean. There's none of this brown glue on there. And then on the rear, this is the power input. Again, you can see that conductive brown glue has gone. It's been completely cleaned up. Now, what the owner also advised was that when the CD player was in operation, it was extremely noisy. Now, the challenge always is that when you look at this CD mechanism, every part of it is plastic fundamentally. Okay, you have the top metal disc, which is magnetic, which sort of holds the CD in position. And the CD players are designed to cope with some level of vibration. But what you find is over decades, which is effectively what we're seeing here, they just become so badly worn that the CD assembly almost shakes. And then that results, of course, in random skipping. Now, you can attempt, for example, to try and do some form of service work on it. But to me, this is more like of a collective problem. It's not one single thing which is worn. It's pretty much all aspects of this laser stroke CD assembly. But the good news is that the CD assembly is generic, so you can still actually purchase them, and you don't have to go to Cambridge Audio to go get these. What I've done is I've just put a link in the description for the video. For anyone out there who has experienced maybe issues with their CD player, they can go and source this. Pretty much you just literally have 4 fixing screws, and then the power connector for the relevant motors, and then the flex cable coming off from the laser assembly, which then connects, of course, to the servo board. That will give you a very, very reliable repair. And when I retested the CD player, it was pretty much silent in operation, just a very, very low level of noise, and I could randomly skip different tracks, getting that laser head to move across the disc randomly. I probably did that over 2 or 3 hours, and the CD player didn't fault once. Absolutely perfect, and as I said, nice and quiet in operation. And then here on this photograph, what you can see on the left hand side is all of the electrolytic capacitors have been removed, and then the bit in the middle is the collection of diodes, the high frequency filter capacitors, and then also a number of resistors which have been replaced. You can see the individual push buttons, and then this bit in the middle is just the loading belt for the CD tray. And the reason for that is that when I did the initial testing and everything else, I couldn't actually get the unit to fault, but I did carry out the work to replace the loading belt. But it was returned back to the customer, and when the customer was using it, then it did fault again. And that was the reason why I retrospectively then went back and said, okay, let's replace the complete mechanism, and that will give you the reliability back on the player. And then, as with all repair tutorials, the CD player was put onto extensive test. I do feel that this is a high quality CD player. The audio output on the analog side is very, very clear, high quality. And as I said, these CD players unfortunately are not designed to last for 30 or 40 years. And the components, many of them are not generic by design. So they're more challenging to try and source them. But I was pleasantly surprised, and no doubt the owner, of course, was happy as well, that I was able to source a brand new CD complete mechanism. As with the Cambridge Azur series, there is also, of course, a version 2 where they made a number of improvements, but this being the earlier version. They're quite easy to spot, obviously the model number, but if you look on the rear, it's the same as the Azur amplifiers. On the version 2, there is an on-off power switch, whereas on the version 1 there isn't, and effectively you operate it from the standby button on the front or from the remote. And they also made some upgrades with regard to the digital to analog side of the CD player in the version 2. So that sort of brings us to the end of this repair tutorial. So as always, I appreciate you stopping by. And if you need any help, guidance or assistance, by all means, email audioamplifierservicing@aol.com, and I'll be more than happy to provide any support that you need. So until the next time, I wish you all the very best. Cheers and bye-bye.